Good morning, boys and girls. This is Wednesday, or Thursday. You should be doing your map testing today. But as usual, we're going to continue the normal Bright Thinker assignments, including reading a new chapter from Black Beauty. So chapter 20 is what we'll read today, which begins on page 96 for those of you who have a paper copy of the book. This is a chapter about Joe Green. Do you remember what happened with Joe Green the last time we heard? He made Black Beauty very sick on accident. He did not mean to, but he ended up making Black Beauty sick by putting a cold cloth on him when he was very hot from running so far. And do you remember what John said was the reason he was very hard on little Joe? He said that ignorance can be very dangerous. So we don't want to excuse that at all. And even though Joe is still a young boy, he needs to start to learn that he has got to be careful about his actions because they could hurt someone just like it hurt Black Beauty. So he was pretty hard on him, but he also was doing it for a good reason. Now, chapter 20, Joe Green. Let's present the screen to show the book and begin reading. Now, Joe Green went on very well. He learned quickly and was so attentive and careful that John began to trust him in many things. But as I have said, he was small of his age, and it was seldom that he was allowed to exercise either Ginger or me. But it so happened one morning that John was out with Justice, one of the other horses, in the luggage cart, and the master wanted a note to be taken immediately to a gentleman's house, about 3 miles distant, and sent his orders for Joe to saddle me and take it, adding the caution that he was to ride steadily. Now, John is showing that he's going to trust Joe again. He's working on building up that trust. Joe has a big job now. The note was delivered, and we were quietly returning when we came to the brick field. Here we saw a cart heavily laden, which means loaded down with bricks. The wheels had stuck fast in the stiff mud of some deep ruts. And the carter, the person driving the cart, was shouting and flogging, meaning whipping, the 2 horses unmercifully. Now, we've seen things like this happen before. Can these horses get out of that wheel stuck in the mud, do you think? Probably not, even if they tried their very hardest and even if they're very strong. I don't think that they can get the wheel out of the mud like that. So what good does it do for this man to whip them? No good at all. It's just going to break them down, make their spirits broken. So Joe pulled up, meaning he's stopping his cart next to the other cart. It was a sad sight. There were the 2 horses. They were straining and struggling with all their might to drag the cart out, but they could not move it. The sweat streamed from their legs and flanks. Their sides heaved, and every muscle was strained. They're working so hard. While the man, fiercely pulling at the head of the fore-horse, meaning the front horse, he swore and lashed most brutally. So he's whipping them harder and harder, even though they're trying as much as they can. "Hold hard," said Joe. "Don't go on flogging the horses like that. The wheels are so stuck that they cannot move the cart." The man took no heed. He didn't listen to Joe, but he went on lashing those horses. "Stop, pray stop," said Joe. "I'll help you to lighten the cart. They can't move it. They can't move it now." And the man says, "Mind your own business, you impudent little rascal, and I'll mind mine." Now the man was in a towering passion, and the worse for drink. And that's why he's in such a bad mood, that he's been drinking. And he laid on the whip again. Joe turned my head, and the next moment, we were going at a round gallop. They're running now, toward the house of the master brickmaker. I cannot say if John would have approved of our pace, but Joe and I were both of one mind, and we were so angry that we could not have gone any slower. The house stood close by the roadside. What do you think Joe's going to do? Maybe tell that brickmaker what's happening? So Joe knocked at the door and shouted, "Hello, is Mr. Clay at home?" Now the door opened and Mr. Clay himself came out. "Hello, young man. You seem in a hurry. Any orders from the squire this morning?" "No, Mr. Clay, but there's a fellow in your brickyard flogging 2 horses to death. I told him to stop and he wouldn't. I said I'd help him lighten the cart, and he wouldn't. So I've come to tell you. Pray, sir, go." Now Joe's voice shook with excitement in a bad way. He's angry. "Thank ye, my lad," said the man, running in for his hat, then pausing for a moment. "Will you give evidence of what you saw if I should bring the fellow up before a magistrate?" Meaning court. He might make this man go to court for treating animals in that way. "That I will," said Joe, "and glad too." Now the man was gone and we were on our way home at a smart trot. "Why, what's the matter with you, Joe? You look angry all over," said John, as the boy flung himself from the saddle. "I am angry all over, I can tell you," said the boy. And then, in a hurried, excited words, he told all that had happened. Joe was usually such a quiet, gentle little fellow that it was wonderful to see him roused. Why do you think Black Beauty thinks it's good to see him roused or kind of riled up right now? Why is little Joe angry? Joe is angry because these horses were being treated unfairly, unjustly. Do you think we should also get angry if we see somebody who's hurting? Or specifically in this case, should we be angry to see that somebody is hurting somebody else? We should. We should always feel upset if we see something that's an injustice, which means it is not fair and it's cruel. That should make us feel upset. If somebody is getting beaten up, or like these poor horses being whipped to death, that should make us really sad and angry. Now, John says, "Right, Joe, you did right, my boy, whether the fellow gets a summons or not. Many folks would have ridden by and said it was not their business to interfere." Now, I say that with cruelty and oppression. It is everybody's business to interfere when they see it. You did right, my boy. Joe was quite calm by this time and proud that John approved of him and cleaned out my feet and rubbed me down with a firmer hand than usual. They were just going home to dinner when the footman came down to the stable to say that Joe was wanted directly in Master's private room. There was a man brought up for ill-using horses, and Joe's evidence was wanted. The boy flushed up to his forehead, and his eyes sparkled. "They shall have it," said he. "Put yourself a bit straight," said John. Joe gave a pull at his necktie and a little twitch at his jacket, and was off in a moment. Our master being one of the county magistrates, cases were often brought to him to settle. So Squire Gordon, he is usually someone who works at this court. Or say what should be done. He's kind of like a juror in the jury. In the stable, we heard no more for some time, as it was the men's dinner hour. But when Joe came next into the stable, I saw that he was in high spirits. He gave me a good-natured slap and said, "We won't see such things done, will we, old fellow?" We heard afterward that he had given his evidence so clearly, and the horses were in such an exhausted state, bearing marks of such brutal usage, that the carter was committed to take his trial and might possibly be sentenced to 2 or 3 months in prison. Joe did a good thing by making this man have a punishment because of his treatment towards them. Now, it was so wonderful what a change had come over Joe. John laughed and said he had grown an inch taller in that week, and I believe he had. He was just as kind and gentle as before, but there was more purpose and determination in all that he did, as if he had jumped at once from a boy into a man. Wow, so Joe is still kind and gentle, but he also has purpose and determination. And I'm going to go back up here for a moment to a specific line that says, With cruelty and oppression, it is everybody's business to interfere when they see it. I would agree with this completely, that when we see something like that happen, a person who's whipping their horses, we shouldn't just walk on by. Instead, we should stop and do something about it, because otherwise those poor horses will not have anyone to stand up for them. And that person might continue on that way. So if you see bad things happening around you, it's best to interfere in some way if there's cruelty and oppression. Like if a person is being bullied, we want to be able to stand up for them and interfere, or at least have like a grown-up come to interfere so that that doesn't continue. So Joe is growing up. That is wonderful to see, isn't it? So that is chapter 20. You've got some notes to take on this chapter, and I will talk to you later. Bye.